I believe, has been due to the commitment of the people involved, to the diversity of the people involved. I mean, it could have been a project where just natural scientists do a number of calculations on their computers and could publish that. But in reality, we open it very much into an interdisciplinary approach. I learned a lot, for example, from my colleagues, social scientists, lawyers, and other urbanists and specialists in resilient urban development, or maybe to urban specialists who were not really involved in resilience and climate change, and learned a lot from the program also. And I think that the fact that we are working between two poles, European pole, Germany, and a South American pole, Brazil, was also something I think very unique, because we have different culture, we have different way of working, and it worked very well. I think what I would like to see now, maybe as a last step, is that really we write together a paper that will capture, show a few examples, but capture essentially the success of this enterprise. So to do that, I would like to ask maybe Diego to give us a bit, what have been the milestones? What have we done? Not everywhere, everybody was there for everything. So let's go through the history of the project.
Thank you, Guy. So I think just reassuring and echoing your words, I think this is a very special day. I think it's a day that we celebrate, the 7 years of the project, but it's also, I think, a symbolic day that we hand over, the legacy of the project to the INCT. So I think we are very pleased to be here and to have gone through all the work that we have done together. But I think just before going on the presentation, which I will highlight some of the points of and outcomes of the project, I think it's worthwhile just paying a tribute to Dr. Nico. I think he was the first project manager. He set the foundation of the project and paved the way also for us to be here today. So thanks so much for all your initial work. We wouldn't have been here without you. Of course, in partnership with Professor Guy Brosset. So this is, I think it represents well, this was the kickoff of the Climapolis at the INPE. And I just want to go through the Climapolis timeline with some of the, most of highs of the project, but, there has been some lows and challenging times that we can perhaps reflect on by the end of the panel. So I think he just summarized the mission, which was to create the institute. The project initiated in 2017. We had our kickoff meeting in Brazil in February 2018. In August, you can see Professor Fatima over there. She's talking about air pollution in São Paulo. And then in December, we had the second Climapolis workshop. I think that was a good, coming to Brazil and going to Germany exchange that took place in Hamburg in 2018. In May, we had the third Climapolis workshop back to Brazil. And I think one of the highlights of the project has been the creation of a virtual laboratory. I think, we cannot underestimate this platform that we have created for many years, where we have like several meetings. We could have, discussions around not only about Climapolis, but about the future and new proposals. So we had a Brazilian director at the time, which was Rita, and a German director and a number of representatives from each side. In October 2020, we also had another Climapolis lab workshop. And in December 2022, we had another air quality workshop. In February 2021, I think this was one of the turning points of the project. At least I wasn't there, but the stories I've heard from a lot of the members, they all came together to write a proposal for the DAD Global Center proposal. which was unfortunately not successful, but I think that was a turning point because that, paved the way for the INCT proposal. So they all came together, they made this extra effort in writing a very good proposal, which was not funded, but, set the foundation for a later on proposal for the INCT. In March 2021, we had a course on infrastructure, cities, and climate change that was led by Professor Renato Anelli. In December 2021, we had the fourth Climapolis workshop. There was a virtual one, of course, due to the pandemic at the time. And in May 2022, we had a postdoc in the project, Dr. Adrian. He made a presentation at the EGU of one of the papers that was published under the Climapolis project. Another very important, I think, outcome of the project was the Climapolis booklet. There was a work mainly led by Professor Erna. So we talk about a lot of about the experience of real-world labs, which is quite interesting. We also had the opportunity to deliver a joint discipline together at the IAG, at USP. Sorry. That was led by Professor Rita and Professor Regina. And we also had to participate from some of the German colleagues, Martin and Anita. Another very important, outcome that tells a lot about the interdisciplinarity of the project and this ambition of also having a dialogue with the policymaker was this joint study working group that was again led by Erna. So they have this official agreement with the City Hall of São Paulo, so they can exchange idea. We can hear the challenges that the City Hall they face, and then we can establish this official dialogue. And last but not least, again, the approval in December 2022, the National Institute of Science and Technology Climapolis, which is now funded by the Brazilian government through the CNPq. Last year, we had in Natal another Climapolis symposium, which was also the kickoff of the INCT. There was a long time ambition of the project to go to Natal. And I think, it was very important for us to go there to talk to the people there. I think it enhanced the project very much. We organized in January 2024 with the University of Hamburg, a climate justice workshop in Hamburg. Again, another really interesting event that we organized. And here we are. I think November 2024, it marks a very special time for the project. We symbolically close the German chapter, so to speak, and then we make sure that we have the legacy flowing into the INCT, and we go to infinity and beyond. We continue together, working together. So I think I just want to highlight some of the perhaps milestone. Nico was there in the beginning. Perhaps he can comment later on in debates anything that I've just missed. But, this was some food for thoughts and for the panel discussions later on. Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah, if you allow me, before we close this first joint presentation, you mentioned Nico, and of course, we all are really grateful to what he did. But you didn't mention there was another manager called Diego. And I think we need to also congratulate and thank Diego for basically the hard work that he's been doing, very quietly, but very efficiently. He has been in contact with many of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much.
And I would like to add also to people who are important because they created or they directed this institute that we were supposed to create. And we have Rita there. So maybe we can say bravo to her. And we have Anita in Germany. Unfortunately, she cannot come for family reason, but she said that she would really be, with us kind of. Finally, the new way. And Judith has been taking the layer, and so with others I know, but I would like to really thank her. She was there right from the beginning, as I said, and she's now taking over. The only little thing that I'm kind of a bit uncomfortable with is perhaps the lack of participation of the German side for the future. And so we have to work on that to make sure that, you know, what we have created here in Brazil and is going to take off like a very big airplane, that there are still a few passengers from Germany on board. Doesn't have to be through money, through official, that we stay in the game in a certain way. So thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Guy. Thank you. So to close this first part of the table, invite Mr. Johannes. So we close this German presentation. So if you could come and give your presentation.
I can stay.
We have the table already.
Boa tarde. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really glad to be here, and I want to greet all climapolitans here in the group. I don't know if you've ever used that term, but I thought it's quite fitting. I wanted to start off maybe with a small quote from Douglas Adams, who is the author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, who once wrote, "We are not endangered species ourselves yet, but this is not for lack of trying." And I think the discussions in the symposium you had so far, you already contributed to many inspirations, how we, Brazil and Germany together, hopefully can keep trying so that we don't become endangered, but rather counter climate change. The IPCC reports reveal that a global warming above 1.5 degrees not only endangers ecosystems, but also political, economic, and societal conditions globally. And most affected are the poorest and most vulnerable groups. As so often, climate change can be a catalyst for tensions and conflicts. It's an essential threat to humanity. Yet science is not all grim. On the contrary, the IPCC reports also tell us that a zero-carbon society is possible. A society of new green jobs and growth that can limit warming to 1.5 degrees if we take action. When looking at our cities, it might seem a little bit far-fetched to talk about extinction and humanity being endangered because there's so many people. But cities are a key factor in climate change. Roughly 60% of the world population live in cities, and we still see rapid growth in urbanization. 80% of global economic activity, energy consumption, and greenhouse gas emissions are in cities. The enormous density and scale of the population lead to various challenges with urban heat buildup, soil sealing, water and waste management, etc. And the enormous heterogeneity of urban populations is connected to questions of socioeconomic inequality and vulnerability. And again, as so often, groups that are already vulnerable tend to be the ones with the highest risk of adverse effects. The Climapolis Laboratory is a very visible example for the successful cooperation between Germany and Brazil to address all these questions. It's a long-standing joint project aiming to contribute to the development of environmentally resilient cities in Brazil. And a big part of the work are real-world experiments that were already mentioned to develop evidence-based solutions. As I saw in the program today in the morning, I think there was a plan to visit some of these projects. I'm really sad I couldn't participate because I would have loved to see them, but I hope there will be another occasion for me to do so. And I think one of the most crucial parts, and that's also for tonight's reception, is the work together with policymakers, community members, and stakeholders. So to really create actionable knowledge for sustainable development. And as was already mentioned, I think the summary for Climapolis is success. I think that was rightly put because in the end, Germany has been, or the German federal government has been in the project since 2017. And it very rarely happens that there's a continuation of these kind of projects later. And I think that you found a way to continue the project with CNPK just goes to show how strong and robust the network is that you have built over the years. And I can just congratulate you for this great success and for the continuation of the project. And I'm quite sure that we will try to include Germany further in the project, even though the structure now is changing and it's taking a different shape. But it would be very important to have Germany still included. And I think another essential building block for this project were these personal meetings and encounters. I think the continuation is also based on these meetings between Hamburg and Sao Paulo, getting to meet each other personally. And I find this a really crucial point because as you might have heard, I'm not a representative of the Ministry of Education that does the funding, but I'm a representative of the German Consulate General and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And for me, this focus on personal connections is quite vital. It's often forgotten, and people tend to forget that science is more than an abstract idea. It's more people who meet and who exchange ideas. And these personal connections across borders and oceans are the most crucial part, and they're also the most crucial part in our science diplomacy strategy. Germany already for a couple of years follows a science diplomacy strategy, which has a really strong focus on making these connections between people, societies, and countries. I find this quite important to stress because historically there was a focus of diplomacy on exchange between political leadership. But in the end, a big part of the German power in the world also stems from the exchange between societies. That's companies and trade, that's people and institutions, and that's also the scientific area. Maybe just to take an example, we now face a lot of debates on geopolitics and global interdependencies. And I always like to take it to the extreme. If you think of a world with complete autonomy, there's nothing left to talk about on a political level. There's no way to have any influence in another country, and there's no way to really have a kind of diplomacy. So civil society is essential to shape the pre-political space. And these personal exchanges are extremely important. And let me finish maybe by saying a couple of words in general on science and our approach to scientific science diplomacy. I would always say that science is not just another opinion. It is much more. It's a rigorous and sometimes very tedious process. It's a continuous journey to dig deeper. And you would think that this goes without saying, but sadly, it appears we all need to emphasize the stance again and again against fake news, against attempts to discredit years of scientific research through a quick social media post, or against attempts to limit academic freedom because it is telling us uncomfortable news. In the same sense, climate change is not an opinion. It's a scientific fact. And it can be noticed around the globe. We see rising sea levels eating away coasts, islands, and cities, fires diminishing forests and crops, extreme weather events that destroy people's livelihoods. In Germany and here in Brazil, every year we have sad new records of floodings, forest fires, heat waves. And I've seen in the program that it's been a big focus of your discussions the past 2 days or 3 days, especially looking at the situation in Rio Grande do Sul in the beginning of this year. But we have had similar events in Bavaria, for example, in Germany, and now in Spain. And it's clear these big global challenges like climate action and sustainability in cities, we can't tackle alone. We still need to work together. And collaboration in this context is much more fruitful than competition. And in this sense, I think it's really important that Germany and Brazil continue on this journey together, a different shape, in a different form than it's been in the past. But I think all activities between Brazil and Germany in scientific relations show that we are strategic partners. We have, I think, roughly 650 joint initiatives in the scientific area between Brazil and Germany. that give rise to more than 5,300 co-authored articles per year. And I think these are very good examples that after 200 years of German migration to Brazil, we celebrate 200 years this year, that our relationship is still agile and very fresh. It's not as old as it sounds with 200 years, but we are still working on it. And I hope there will be, infinity and beyond for Klimapolis, as you mentioned. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Johannes, for joining us today for your. So moving on, I would like to invite Professor Fatima from USP. I think she will talk a little bit more about the ongoing INCT work. So we look forward to hearing from you.
No primeiro, mas obrigado. Não, vou falar aqui em pé mesmo. E, bom, eu vou aproveitar que a gente tem tradução simultânea.
I will take the opportunity that we have simultaneous interpretation. I will speak Portuguese. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. I hope you can follow. There is simultaneous interpretation. It's easier for me to speak Portuguese because as I am not doing a technical presentation, it's more about the history of it. I think I can tell this story better in Portuguese. So I had prepared a bit more about the past, but Diego has showed this already. So I'm going to talk a little bit more what was approved, the INCT, Klimapolis, that was approved in the end of 2022 to start 2023. So I'm going to tell a little bit about backstage what happened, because actually I'm the coordinator of the INCT. So I will use this place here. I am at EIG. I cannot mention everybody who participated, but Rita, Professor Rita, came to my room and said, look, we couldn't approve the Klimapolis lab before, and we now have the CNPq for this, which is the INCT. So CNPq has the National Institutes of Science and Technology, and we could take this opportunity once it is national and all the requisites to participate. And I said, Rita, you know, I'm coordinating a project, and there was a condition at INCT that needed to be a permanent professor and that was not coordinating or vice coordinating INCT. So here in Brazil, you exclude people, and at the end, the rules of CNPq and FAPESP, they make only seniors able to submit proposals, because only there in the end of your career you can join such projects. So me and Judith, we are going to do it. You say, okay, we are going to look after it. So with this condition and with the cooperation, more than cooperation, with this work of Judith and Rita, we can conduct this. So I am here talking about a project which is came from this desire, this willing for this cooperation that started with Germany. And I should say that when I tried to make a retrospective, I remembered some seminars that we did together, and it was difficult in the beginning, and motivation was when it comes to real world supply that Ana Paula was conducting. And in the first seminars, we had some IAG, each one presented what they were doing, so the seminar was there, but it was too specific, too technical. So in practice, it is for us to learn how to work together. I think all this cooperation is, we have several people who are working in this project from the beginning. It is difficult to name everyone because we always forget somebody, but it is a cooperation that is started from small projects, smaller cooperations, few resources. And if we are going to sum to see the money that was invested throughout time in order to keep this cooperation that dates like 10 years or more in a scale of time, if we see the resources that were invested, it is too small if we compare to the fruits that these have, all the cooperation, the projects that were conducted, the submissions related to the project, interaction between students, the exchange of postgrad students. So if we consider in financial terms, it's too little amount of money for the results we have had. So INCT has very short resources. We are struggling in order to have the students pay for scholarships, which is our main goal, to keep this community and this new generation who is coming. So I first do this disclaimer here and take the opportunity to thank. Sometimes the results are really good results, and otherwise we wouldn't be able to have this cooperation and this participation that we have had in other states. This week, tomorrow, and on Friday, there will be a focus on atmosphere. So we are going to have other cooperators, other people who are from Paraná, Santa Catarina, from Minas Gerais, that are also involved for this. So there is a big group that now have a more formal structure of cooperation. I'm going to show you the access, how Climapes is organized. So they organize and put all this together because they are from other different states. So it's much more difficult to have the resources if it's not national. So we are going to have more people coming in this area of atmosphere. So I'm going to skip the history because it was told before. The lab also, there is a picture of Anita and Diego and Martin, who must be here. Important to mention them as well. I'm going to skip all this and move straight for this. When it was structured, there are two big axes, let's say. Here it's in English, it's easier for everyone to follow. We included this relation with the cities, with the environmental impact issues, the climate change in the cities, also the impact of the cities in the local changes. So what was mentioned before on the surface change, so you have floods, the amplification of heat waves, many populations suffering more due to the climate change because they live in the cities and changing everything. So you have this change induced by the cities. And the other big structure was to work with these experiments in the real world. So Ana Paula had a big experience with that, and for us, at least for part of the group, was something new. And in the morning, I think they could interact and see how it works on practice, which is something important for the project to exchange experiences, especially between the group from São Paulo and Natal, when it comes to the experiments. One of the main objectives is to consolidate and expand the existing network because it existed. We had all this network before. So how to expand this? Because actually it exists São Paulo and Natal due to the participation of Judite from the beginning with this cooperation with Germany. So these two axes were there already, but from this beginning, this kickoff, we had this extension to other research groups, because in Brazil, we have a critical mass of people using different aspects of the atmosphere, use of the soil, the land use, water contamination, the emergencies that we have locally. So it was an opportunity to make it in a very organized way. So there are some topics in this case, they exemplify this very well. And these topics, in the end, will be explained in thematic axis. So we have the characterization of air quality. This is also for the use of low-cost sensors. There is a big group dealing with that. The study of the impact of climate change, and then modeling the experiments, the real world experiments, urban planning and governance. Here from the beginning, we have the participation of Professor Pedro, who, with literature and everything, in several presentations that were made by him. Also the infrastructure, more recently, lots of discussions and nature-based solutions, both for the cases there, especially in Natal. I think Professor Venerando is here. He came with this important topic. The impact of climate change and air quality on human health. It will be addressed on Friday in the morning. And here are some aspects also of training. I think this is a focus we should actually, one of the most important focus, because here we include the qualification, the availability of scholarships for students. Maybe we have to broaden a little bit more this exchange of experience, the coastal erosion, flooding, management, and the participation. We always count on the participation of the public sector, both at state and municipal level. There is a huge participation in the municipal aspect. We had a meeting with the secretariat, the planning secretariat, the municipal of infrastructure. So part of the project has this link, this more strong link with the city hall, but I think it's a space to increase this interaction and take a little bit and use the knowledge that we acquire throughout the way. This photo is from the workshop in Natal. I think this photo, Diego, after I can give you the photo, okay? This is a photo that was taken in Natal. You can see the sea there in the end. I'm going to send you this photo to you. This was the event we had in Natal, most of the presentations that took place there. I will give these photos to Diego as well. And there is a map. Actually, now there is a website and a platform. Igor is here. He could then maybe explain this to present the platform, because he was the one who prepared this platform. And in this platform, with the cooperation, of course, of many other people with suggestions, we have in this map the Brazilian institutions and the German institutions that participate in the network. Of course, this is something that was summed up with time. I imagine not everything is here, some may be missing, but you see the coverage in Brazil. Many of the states that are participating, we have now Rio Grande do Sul, that is not shown there, guys from Manaus. So the network is expanding, the interest of different institutions, and on the German side, we hope to keep this cooperation whenever, if possible, this cooperation, not just informally, but also formal cooperation, trying to look to see possibilities for funding. There are some possibilities that we have seen from SUNAIS and or state possibilities such as FAPESP that has this partnership between Brazil and Germany that we will try to keep it. I included here a sketch. It was just to make a relation between the interest on integrated services, because this is not just something that we talk, but it is also the recommendation of the Meteorological World Organization to integrate the services and research in order to have urban services. So we would be in this philosophy of creating products for more urban services for the cities. I don't want to talk about that much. I tried to include the photo of many people. Of course, it's not very good, but these are many people who are part of the INCT. And with that, I thank you very much, and I am available for questions.
Thank you, Professora Fátima. I would like now to invite Professora Judith. She also is leading the INCT along with Fátima.
Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, by the way, I to talk in Portuguese, sorry. Boa tarde a todos.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was wondering all these minutes if I was going to speak Portuguese or English, but there will always be a group of people that will not understand me. But the slides are in English and there is interpretation, and the interpreters generally have, it's easier for them to translate the language. So I think it's going to work like that. So I have the role here of presenting how INCT Climápolis is doing, because it has been 2 years that the project was approved. Fátima brought the history of how it started and showed some basic data on what the objectives are. But I'm going to show you, well, we talked about what the Institute is based on the objectives that we initially had. Climápolis funded by the German Ministry of Science and Education, so we would like to continue doing this transdisciplinary research on the adaptation, climate adaptation of the urban areas, Brazilian urban areas, what also include solutions for environmental problems. The methodology, the main focus of the methodology of the experiments, this is real, and the cities we chose, because we cannot do the experiment in all the cities, all the capitals in Brazil, obviously, we decided for São Paulo and Natal as cities in order to do the main experiments, the real world experiments. So for INCT, we expanded our areas, we structured our acting areas to 5 interdisciplinary research fronts. And I'm going to present them to you now throughout my presentation. So officially, Fátima explained how it's going to happen, but Fátima is the main coordinator. I am officially as vice coordinator for CNPq, but together with me, I consider Rita as a vice coordinator in charge of an important area of the project, which is finance and scholarship. And I try with my view to make the project flow and grow according to the areas that we judge to be more important. So, what is the structure like now? So we have general coordination, the management committee, which is big, because for each of the subnets, we have one main coordinator and many vice coordinators. Because if somebody cannot participate on online meetings, because almost all of them are professors, they are teaching, and it's difficult to have a time that everybody is available to participate on this meeting. So one of the vice coordinators should be available to participate. In addition, we launched next year an International Council Committee for advisory, for council, that is composed of the members of the management committee of the initial Climápolis, German-Brazilian Climápolis. And the idea is that this committee will help us to establish new partnerships and also to look at the existing ones, and also for thinking new partnerships. Once now for this INCT, the international cooperations are very welcome. And it is in the public note, and now we can cooperate with other countries, especially from South America, Argentina, Chile. So these are in our plans. We haven't started it yet because first we wanted to organize our home here. So We have these subnetworks, which is air and noise, the second water and soil, the third climate variability, the fourth adaptation to climate change, and the fifth health and quality of life. We've thought about the transversal axis of our project because we are interested, we have in common interests between the subnetworks. So we created 3 transversal axes that would connect to the subnetworks. The first is the real world experiments, and all the subnetworks are going to work. The second is the Climapolis platform. Fatima mentioned it briefly. It is a platform that was launched. It is its first version, and we are ready to test it. I didn't include here the website where you can find it, because tomorrow, Igor Tiburcio is going to present it and launch this platform together with Leonaski. The two are from the Federal University of Santa Catarina. They are our partners from INCT, and they are going to explain better what the platform is. But in a sentence, it puts together all the articles, all the papers of our community, INCT Climapolis, but other papers that are interesting for the problems we approach in our subnetworks and our access. And we put all these papers and articles together. You can easily find them, per location, per subject. So any manager from São Paulo, for example, looks for publications on, for example, water safety in São Paulo. They can go to the platform and try to look it only for São Paulo, and he will find a lot of material about São Paulo. So it is to make it easier for the managers to make the access to information, is scientific-based information for urban planning. In addition to it, we would like to include also in this platform the links with the data we produce in the project and other data that are available, but sometimes are difficult to find. And we would like to have all this information like a storage. It's data storage with the links, a little bit explanation on how this data can be used in the platform. Tomorrow, and 9A, tomorrow, there will be also at midday, this platform, Climapolis platform, Leo and Igor will provide you more information about it. The third transversal axis is for the development of indices. This axis is, we need to work more on it. We need to see this subject from next year. We have had a mini workshop on the real world experiments, where we also had a work cafe to discuss about these indices, mapping, in the opinion of the participants of the workshops that were INCT members, what the indices should be, the indices we want to develop. This is also a topic that will be transversal to all the subnetworks. So I'm not going into detail of what is the focus of each of these subnetworks, but it's everything in this context of climate adaptation of urban areas. If you want to learn more about it, our website is already working. I'm going to show it in the last slide. So some of the texts on these subnetworks, and also about the transversal axis. And then what is novel in the development of the project today is that in addition to the cities of São Paulo and Natal, we are talking to people and researchers and managers who are interested in having twin experiments in the cities of Fortaleza and Rio de Janeiro. Fortaleza, we had a first joint meeting. It's already decided, and in Rio we are still talking. These real world experiments are not going to be funded by this. We know that Rita was there worried about it, but the researchers, they have the infrastructure, the equipment to do an experiment that is focused on air quality of air. In Natal, there are 3 real-world experiments, one for an important river that for the supply of the metropolitan region of Natal, which is Pitimbu River, and they are making some measurements of this, the flow rate, forecast for water quality, and also see how this flow can be kept, because it is being reduced and it cannot be reduced even more, otherwise it will not serve as a supply for the water supply of the city. There is another project on coastal management that is led by Professor Venerando. This from Pitbull, Jonathan Mota, who is here from the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte. Venerando also works with coastal erosion. There is also activities for the embankment, the beach replenishment, which means solutions, but also problems. And he is in charge of this real world experiment. And for air quality, we are also planning an experiment using low-cost sensors, and we are organizing ourselves to measure a neighborhood in Natal where we have more incidents of respiratory problems of the risk groups of the population, especially small children till the 6 years of age. So, platform, I told you, it's going to be launched tomorrow at midday. It's table 9. The development of indices, you see here, these are the indexes we can think about presenting who the managers are and talk what are the ones they need the most, to think how we can produce these indices with the data that we have available, or asking the managers what data they need to collect so we can calculate these indexes to them. And lastly, we also have some emerging projects for today for low-cost sensors. Now we are more focused on air quality, but we can also include people from other areas who want to measure other variables. There is also another emergent project. The representatives are here, Marise Costa and Ricardo Alcântara from the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte, who are from... They are now leading this initiative of climate justice and environmental justice. We had no project about it, but we think it's very important to be included. The third, we had a table with the coordinators of this project, André Gonçalves from INPA and Fernando Martins from Unifesp. It is also a panel on the renewable energies for urban areas, Brazilian areas. And this was recorded, the session was recorded for the ones who could not watch it because it was in parallel with the event of Ana and Renato. So we are going to have this project that will join this subject in partnership with institutions, INPE, and other institutions that the Federal University of Natal. And there is a new project, which is sustainable communication. This is our communication assistant. She's there filming everything with her smartphone. She started a master's degree in information sciences, and she has a project to work with the water women in Rio Grande do Norte, the women who collect mussels. They work in these urban areas collecting mussels. And in this urban context, they have several problems that are connected to climate change and environmental problems. And there are many problems among different sectors acting. We deal with them in the project. We from the academy there is the sector, the managers at state and municipal level, and also the communities, the vulnerable communities where we have to test our experiments. But this dialogue needs to we need to have this dialogue among different sectors, and it's not always what happened. And Glaucia told me that this community of the women, they have a very violent communication, and she is going to work this in her master study. It will be a real world experiment that she is going to do there in Rio Grande do Norte. And at the same time, with that, she is going to work what the rules are, what are the conditions that we have to follow in order to have a good dialogue with the managers and the community. So it's going to help us with communication for future developments of the project. So I'm going to conclude now with that, my presentation. You have here all our contacts. We are really active, thanks to Glaucia and the other Vili. This is our Instagram channel, YouTube channel, which is the same, INCT Climapolis altogether. On YouTube, we also post some seminars, month seminars that we are promoting from INCT Climapolis, both with internal and external people. On all these topics, we are working in the project. And in some days, the website inctclimapolis.org can also be accessed from all of you. Thank you very much.
Muito obrigado, Judith. Eu não queria avançar muito
Thank you,
sobre o
Judith.
próximo painel,
I wouldn't like to use time from other panel, but I think that we should maybe see if you have any questions or comments, okay? We will be here. We could talk about it if you have any doubts, okay?
I could not speak, right? So especially when Guy referring to the quiet work that Diego was doing, gently he called me the loud one. So I think I want to reinforce what Guy said at the beginning. The strength and the success of Climapolis was this interdisciplinary membership of the partners, but also with this transdisciplinary approach in trying to make changes. But more than that, even if we had at the very beginning different groups, social, natural scientists, practitioners, and so on, without open mind, would be impossible. I think that was key for all those partners being open-minded and learning to each other. I refer to what Renato said at the beginning. First meeting, got there, I know nothing about climate change, and guess what? We knew nothing about application, right? So I learned a lot personally during this process, which I think was key for the job that I'm doing at the moment, organization, where the integrated urban services is one key topic, with the support that the German government has to the urban agenda internationally. And I think it's important for Climapolis to step up for the INCT, particularly in these next 2 years, where the special report for the IPCC on urban and climate change in cities, this will be very important, a contribution from the Climapolis network to that special report through the papers that are going to be published and so on. So I think that is going to be a fantastic opportunity for Climapolis to be part of this. And learning from the setbacks that Diego also mentioned in terms of that unfunded proposal that in the end facilitated the proposal for the NCT, one of the criticisms that we had at the time was it was required by a regional network
we had a very strong, probably one of the strongest in all the candidates, strongest networks with the proposals in one country. It was required to have regionally, right? And we struggle to do that. So I think that's important. And Fatima, in your one of your slides, to strengthen this connection, particularly in Latin America, where we're closer brothers, sisters. And so I think this is, I think it is one of the nexus for the NCT to have this or strengthening network within Latin America particularly, but also with the German partners with their experiences in Europe and so on. We could see here already with colleagues from India, colleagues from the UK. So I think this is natural, but I think it's something that can be done. I just want to thank everybody for the opportunity that I had at the beginning to be part of this family. You take the boy from Climapolis, but you don't take Climapolis from the boy. Albio is a great supporter from the World Meteorological Organization. There are formal mechanisms to continue this support from our side. But yes, I think it was a part of my life that it will definitely be continue, and I'll be always looking for the outcomes of the Climapolis here in Brazil. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's have like a perhaps last round if you want anyone else to like say something, and then we have to close because otherwise we are running a little bit late.
Okay, thank you, Diego. I wanted to address Guy's concern related to the contact that we should keep with our partners in Germany and continue the collaboration. You are right. We need to do that, and we need to invest more in that again. So the project is at the end now of the second year, and we needed to organize things here. But we brought, I think, 6 or 7 people from Germany to this event. And you remember that when I was in January in Germany, we also invited people from the Potsdam Institute for Sustainability from the Helmholtz Society. And there was the proposal submitted led by Eduardo in January. So we were waiting for the outcome. Unfortunately, it didn't work that time, but we hope very much that you will be able to find new funding. We actually, I think Fatima omitted this. We had a second attempt after the first one of the AD to CNPq, another proposal that we wrote that was also not successful. And then the third one for the INCT institutes came through. So I always say this to my students and to myself, we always need patience and persistence to move on, right? So sometime it will work out. And I think that we should work also on having new institutions from Germany aboard. And I have a few ideas, but we need to see with the budget that we have at INCT Climapolis that had foreseen some traveling to Germany, but flights are incredibly expensive at the moment, and not everything was approved that we asked for. So we have to see if it would be possible for 1 or 2 people from Climapolis to travel. And I think you need to make a personal contact. If you don't know the people and the institution at all, it's a bit complicated to do it online. So I think we need to find solutions for that, maybe additional funding to be able to keep on having this collaboration with Germany in a more effective way, and also find new partners, maybe more people from the air quality area as well. Because the former proposal was very focused on social sciences, right? And which is fantastic. We need that in INCT, but well, you know, it's not my area, so I wouldn't know how to actually contribute to it in an effective way. But so we can, in parallel, maybe do something also for the trains.
So we should recognize that developing interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary proposal is always difficult because agencies are not necessarily structured to basically address those issues. I can see it in the Max Planck Society. Once you go outside your discipline, everybody gets nervous. But what I think we need to think increasingly about is the solution, the application, which implies the participation of other players than the universities. That includes the private sector, that includes NGOs, that includes foundations. There is a lot of money inside foundation to support the development of products that will help addressing a problem. So we need to think also very differently and not just rely on the traditional sources of funding.
So, from Marcio, and then I will have to close. Otherwise,
Say about the regional collaboration.
okay, and then you, and then Marcio, and then we close.
Can I just make a final comment to that? I just wanted to stress that point because I think the idea of these like more project-based work might sometimes enable different ways of funding. Because institutional funding for scientific institutions, that's one path, but project-based work on like this long array of products that you have, like real-world experiments, might open up other sources of funding. I think that might be interesting to think about and maybe continue this debate and discussion. That was my only comment.
Thank you.
Only to address what Nick said about the collaborations, regional collaboration. We have a long history of regional collaborations, but the problem is always funding. But this year we had a meeting, and we have two meetings here in São Paulo, one related to air quality and the other, the Pan-American Meteorological meeting here. And what we noticed is that the people want to work together. And then we start some networks with young researchers, and the problem is to find how to implement the collaboration efficiently. But there is this need and this idea to work together here in Latin America. That's a note.
Marcio?
Okay, thank you, Diego. So I have actually 3 comments, but I do it very objective, very shortly. So one is about the expansion of the network in Germany. I remember that some years ago, the University of Münster had a strategic partnership with the USP, and one of the research groups was about climate in cities. So maybe they have interest to be part, to integrate the network. And this is one comment. The second comment, so Nico, in the timeline, I missed that Nico was one of member of our dialogue about climate change as well. And that was a very fine collaboration of Nico in the last months that he was at Max Planck Institute. Thank you, Nico, for that. Unfortunately, that was the year of pandemics, the first year, and we could not have the dialogue in person here in São Paulo. It was online. And the third comment, so you Judith, I think, presented that you can expand to other cities in Brazil, Fortaleza, Rio. Yes, if you don't have contacts in Rio, I can maybe offer contact in Niterói, my city, because Niterói was the first city in Brazil that has, but it's still not the unique, having a city secretary for climate change. And the guy there is very engaged, and the government was re-elected, not the major, it will be the former major will come back and maybe he will still there in the secretary. So I can offer the contact. And maybe UFI, the Federal University of Niterói, maybe has, for sure, has researchers as well in the area if you don't have contacts there.
Thank you. I would like now to close this session. Thanks so much for all the panel members. And now I pass on to Ana Gabriela Godinho Lima. She will moderate the next session. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. We are now starting the second part of our panel, the role of German research funding institutions. I would like to start inviting Márcio Weichert from the German Centers for Research and Innovation, São Paulo. Márcio, I would like to present him. Então, Márcio was graduated in social communication journalism from Fluminense Federal University, and the guest has a specialization in strategic management and training in leadership and knowledge transfer. He is currently the coordinator of the German Center for Science and Innovation in São Paulo, with extensive experience in institutional relations, marketing, and communication. He worked for 7.5 years in Germany and was awarded by the Ministry of Culture and Dramaturgy. He is also a member of the Cultural Council of the Martius Staden Institute. Welcome, Márcio.
Thank you very much. So I see that I need to update this biography because this council doesn't exist anymore. So let's see here. I think I will present in Portuguese. You is okay that I do in Portuguese? Okay, thank you. So, então, fazer em português.
So I will make my presentation in Portuguese. I am an enthusiast of this initiative
Oh, Cristiane, you will understand.
of Climapolis. Cristiane, you will also understand in Portuguese. So, DVIHAR, our acronym, DWIH, network. So, DVIHAR is our acronym. We are part of DAD, the German Service of Academic Interchange, which is an organization for interchange programs in Germany. We are a network of 6 universities throughout the world and a center in our headquarters in Bonn. You're seeing there on the screen. This is an initiative from the German government. We are 100% fomented by the Ministry of External Relations, Foreign Relations, and trying to join science, politics, and the economic sectors. Each of the DVIs have their own groups of institutions, cooperators ones, we say the supporter institutions, which are German institutions. As you can see there, universities, research associations such as Max Planck Society,
organizações de fomento,
other funding organizations, state representatives, and other kinds of organizations. Here you can see the ones that are connected to the VEI in São Paulo. Very proud to be among the 6, the one that has the biggest number of German organizations and associates, 31 in total. We divided them into full supporters and associated supporters. The full supporters are the ones that have their own representative here in Brazil, so easier to make contact and talk, and they are more present, fully present, participating in our events. Also, Yahoo there, the Alliance, in these full supporters, and they will launch their office here in Brazil in January. And the associated supporters who are down there, the institutions that do not have a representative here in Brazil. So here today, I am also representing the Humboldt Foundation, represented by Cristiana, the FG by Cristina, and the others I think are not represented here today, all the universities from HOFA. And in the associated supporters, you see state representatives of Baviera, Baden-Württemberg, other research institutes, Max Planck, Leibniz, NIF. Our objectives are to promote this knowledge interchange among institutions, Brazilian researchers, the German researchers, not only scientific knowledge, but also knowledge on the ecosystems, né? Science and innovation from both countries, and offering advice, information for students, researchers, leaderships, multipliers that would like to promote the cooperation among countries. And also when it comes to knowledge, this interchange of scientific knowledge among researchers and promoting then networking. We like financing this kind of event. In April last year, we funded an event in Natal in order to have the researchers, innovators, public agents, policymakers, NGOs all together in order to promote new projects, research and innovation projects, and also knowledge transfer. And the last column, which is marketing, we do this, any event is also considered that will increase our visibility. So the activities are for scientific cooperation, also science-business interface, especially the industry, more recently, the research-based entrepreneurship, and also acting for study, research, and innovate in or with Germany. The DVH network has a central topic this year. This year is artificial intelligence. Here in Brazil, we had or have a second topic this year, which is the Jubilee, the 200-year Jubilee of German immigration in Brazil. We celebrate 200-year cooperation here in Brazil. Here are some examples of events of our agenda this year related to these topics, and also yours. So we had in March in Turbin in Germany, the German-Brazilian Symposium for Sustainable Development. Naturally, climate change was one of the topics for this event. We also later in Florianopolis for the initiative of the Goldstack and the University of Wisconsin, this symposium in Santa Catarina, a discussion about sustainable futures based on solar, green hydrogen, the reuse of batteries. Also in Belém, the state of Pará, the annual meeting of the Brazilian Society, SBPC. We are every year in this event with our booth and also the round table. We dedicated the round table for the Jubilee, but we decided not to talk about the past, talk about 200 years ago, but also if the attractiveness of a scientific career in Brazil for foreign researchers, especially German ones, for example, migrate to Brazil in order to have their careers. Judith was one of the speakers that were invited, and together with Stephanie from Curitiba. It was a very nice speech and testimonial, but the CAP is calling CNPq to talk about what was going on. And in this campaign of the 200 Jubilee, we also have a series of videos in our YouTube channel with 8 interviews. Judith was launched on Thursday. It is available on YouTube. For us, the followers on LinkedIn can also find the link to this interview with Judith, in addition to all the others that were published already. And we have 2 more interviews to be published. And also for artificial intelligence, G20 in Brazil, we had in July a conference in Rio to debate artificial intelligence, the regulations, because there is a policy paper that was delivered for G20 coordination to be presented in these discussions. And we are going to close this cycle of artificial intelligence discussion with this German-Brazilian Dialogue on Science, which is the main scientific event in May here in São Paulo. I always talk about some funding programs that we have. Among institutions, the VEIRA is not a funding institution, but we have some subsidies for the events of institutions that are connected to this. Those 31 institutions can ask for support, 5,000, 8,000 euros, depending on the category. And they can join other cooperators and sum these values. On Monday, we said that until they reach a total of 20,000 euros in order to fund events and meetings such as this one we are having. This first call will go, the deadline is November 29. The VEIRA, some of the programs of the AD here in Brazil, winter school for language and culture, post-graduation EPOS for topics connected with sustainable development, Helmut Schmidt for post-graduation in public policies and governance. So it may be interesting for your public. And then arts, a new program for scholarships on green hydrogen, the fellowship artificial intelligence, which is not your focus, but for researchers in general. We have also supports for 3 months in Germany, visits, so they can organize groups of 15 students and have a tour to some universities and institutions. Also, the PROPASP programs for scientific production with the mobility of doctorate and postdoc, and also the visiting professors program. For the doctorate or postdoctorate, we also have different modalities and support for these students in the area of green hydrogen. Also fellowship for these areas. I'm not going into detail for these programs. Some channels, Christina is going to present this one, DFG, the Humboldt Foundation. Christina can correct or complement if you have questions, but Humboldt has a partnership with CAPES for fellowships, postdoc fellowship, and for senior researchers for up to 2 years in Germany, okay? So there are 2 calls per year. We have one that will end at the end of this month, but the next will last until May. Something which is very important to consider is that Humboldt would look for the historical profile of the researcher more than the project itself, because it is an investment on the researcher, not on the project. And it is a fellowship. It multiplies the whole life, because there are many other calls, many other opportunities throughout time. And the other program that is for climate protection. In order to candidate for this program, you need to be graduated, and you're going to do research in a year. It's not vinculated to the title, doesn't need to be academic research. It can be something done in a company, government institutions, NGOs. So you have a variety of things. This call will last until February. Beilat or Baviera, which is the center there are also very specific programs. The only program I know for graduate students, undergrad, the ones that are about to graduate and they're going to have their final thesis here in Brazil, they can apply to do part of their research in an institution there that has an agreement with their university here in Brazil. So up to 5 months, and also for the master students who can go there and do part of their research for their dissertation there in Germany. It's very difficult to find these sandwich programs for graduation and master here in Brazil. Well, Beilat, every year there is a call for workshops in Brazil and Bavaria, 25,000 euros for each site. That's the offer of this program. So you can do good workshops with this money. And also a call for cooperation partnerships. Here I know that almost everybody is from the north of Germany, but if you are interested to do this, there is this program available for you. And also the EIF, which is the Industrial Research Association. They have a program with the Ministry for Economic Development for network and partnerships between companies and research institutions, both sides, Germany and Brazil. So here also, if you work in partnership with companies, all sizes, especially small and medium companies, you have this option here in Brazil. Normally, Embrapi and Senai are partners, but FAPESP can maybe join with this to ask for funding with them. And with that, I would like to conclude showing our channel so you can stay in touch. I suggest you to subscribe to our newsletter, not to depend on algorithms, so you receive the news and follow all the opportunities that are disclosed there. You receive the newsletter just once a month. Thank you very much.
Now it's my pleasure to call Christina Peters from the Office of the German Research Foundation, Germany. Christina Peters holds a PhD in Brazilian history from Freie Universität Berlin, Germany, and a diploma degree equivalent to MA in cultural sciences from the Universität des Saarlandes, Germany. From 2012 to 2015, she headed the liaison office of Freie Universität Berlin in São Paulo. After that, she worked at the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation and the German Academic Exchange Service, DAAD, in Bonn, Germany. At DAAD, she managed the network of the German Center for Research and Innovation. She joined the German Research Foundation, DFG, in 2020, and is currently the director of the DFG Office Latin America, which is located in São Paulo, Brazil. Welcome, Christina.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon. I will try to keep it as short as possible because I know it's already very late and you must be very excited also to go to the residence of the Consul General. So let me just present you very shortly the DFG for those of you that are not acquainted maybe with the German science funding system. And then I will present some funding opportunities for you that might be interesting also if we think of the infinity of Klimapolis. So maybe here and there will come up opportunities to also apply for DFG funding. And I think I will follow Judith and I will talk in Portuguese because you have the slides here in English and maybe this makes it also easier for the ones that are doing the translation of the event. So let me just start very rapidly giving you having a glance at the DFG, what the DFG actually is and does. So it's an organization, quite interestingly, if you compare it to other funding organizations throughout the world, that is independent and it's self-governing. And why am I emphasizing this? Oh, I'm still speaking English. Eu queria falar em português, é verdade, né? Bom, eu vou fazer isso agora, gente. Estava empolgada com o inglês.
I was very excited about my English, but it is an organization that is self-governing. It is not, it's an NGO, but it receives money from the federal government and the states of Germany. And why do I emphasize it in that states of DFG? Because it defines a little bit how it works and how it looks at for research funding. It is an association and the members are the universities and research institutions in Germany, such as Max Planck, Helmholtz, etc. And from this, there is this idea of funding research projects and to be open to all areas and not defining specific areas or topics in order to finance research. So the scientific community, the idea is that the scientific community, if they wanted to apply, they can at any moment deliver their proposals to make these proposals for DFG funding. And with that, we also explain the distribution of these funds from DFG, because it is basically, it's very well balanced among different areas. I think you cannot see very well the graph, but you can see that, of course, the area that receives most of the investment is life sciences. There is also more fund for it because it's a big area, but other areas also receive some money, which is a considerable amount of money. And DFG, I think this is important. They really support international cooperation in research. So all funding lines, it's possible to have international cooperation co-funded by DFG. Here, once again, these are the funding principles which I mentioned before. It is really open topic to all areas, but it is basic research. This I have to emphasize. It funds basic research, different from BNPF, which funds Klimapolis, which is more for applied research and mission-oriented funding. So there is no need to make your research project fit into any strategic priority or thematic cause, because DFG does not work with that. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about the DFG funding and co-funding together with organizations and institutions here in Brazil, because I think this is what is interesting for the people who are in the meeting. There are many organizations, cooperation in Latin America. More specifically in Brazil, there is these cooperators here, CAPES, CNPq, FAPESP, FAPERJ, and FAPEMIG. And with these organizations, we have established different activities in order to co-found research projects. And as we work in general, when we co-fund this research, normally the FG likes following the principle of the standing open procedure, which we do not define deadline for the project. So you have a continuous open flow. So scientific community can always deliver their proposals, both for DFG and the partner organization. But very often in the international environment doesn't work very well because there are some topic restrictions, also budget restrictions. So very often we have to work what we call thematically open calls or thematically focused calls, but with a deadline. And this is something that we do a lot in Brazil as well, but also we could establish these open procedures with FAPESP, and I'm going to explain this a little bit more in detail. Something that is always worth mentioning is that when we have a co-funding, the German side, we have no money reserved for international cooperation. All the projects that are presented to DFG with international cooperation, they will have the same process. The evaluation process is the same. There is no money that is especially for the international cooperation, okay? So there is no differentiation between national or international for the evaluation of projects. But let's talk a little bit about the cooperation that we have established here in Brazil. The first, that it dates from long history, it is with the CAPES. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it because this was one of the topic cooperations and it continues being because we have cooperated more in the area of engineering and law. But as here, it's also about interdisciplinary project, and I see there are people from law participating. This can maybe be interesting to know that we have regular calls with CAPES in this area as well. So I think it's worth mentioning that there are these calls with CAPES, the last one closed now, but we have the idea there will be other calls with CAPES for next year. And now, when it comes to the appropriate, what would be ideal for DFG is that we establish with FAPESP, which is this continuous flow that we established with them and worked the whole year, so they can always be presented to FAPESP, DFG, bilateral projects. And I will leave here the QR codes so you can take a photo. I don't have much time to go in detail, but it's important to highlight that we could overall co-fund projects, bilateral projects, up to 3 years, and also cooperative projects, bigger projects with bigger groups that are always also more ambitious on the sense of being longer, I would say. And it's important here in DFG, you can always apply. If you have a doctor degree, of course, you can apply. If you are associate to a university in Germany or a research institution, and at FAPESP, the researchers from the state of São Paulo have to be vinculated to a research institution here in the state, and also go through the eligibility process from FAPESP, that they always carry out this process. Very briefly, showing the programs, the most used programs on DFG for international cooperation.
Que eu acho que vale mencionar é seed money funding, que é essa iniciação de colaborações internacionais. Isso aqui é interessante para quem
is very interesting for those
projeto muito
who don't
concreto
have a very concrete project to be presented here. Or if you participate and you see people that are exactly to prepare the research and the project for research. This is a financing line that we have agreed at this moment, and we can work in this and
and finance some Brazilian together. And if we have a project to share, to think about, and to prepare a project, a research project together. And naturally, we have the next step, which would be the bilateral project that would be up to 3 years project that comes with the financing for assumptions, equipment, and human resources as well, at least on TFG, and these with the regular support of Sabesp is our main character there in this, with this type of financing that can be used together with Sabesp. Lastly, more ambitious, both for the costs and the work invested, are collaborative projects. We have different formats. They can be co-financed with Sabesp. One are some groups, training groups for doctorate students, 12 to 15. From both sides is a financing that is more institutional, that involves several institutions, research, both on the international and German side, and it is differentiated in 2 parts. One of 5 years, and then can be extended for other 4 years to train people in the academia, and this is not only a code to tell. Sometimes we have this question. It is a training on a question, research question, several times that is interdisciplinary. And the idea is that for these people to contribute, and this is the research program, and we expect to have books, conference, and everything, and they participate a lot in this academia process. Here we have some slides presenting every financing line, but because of the time, I'm going to go through it, and we can talk afterwards or share the information. And maybe it's interesting for us to see opportunities of financing for research in Germany. This is interesting as well, because many times it's good to remember that this is not a one-way thing. A lot of researchers that for somehow some time they get out, they build networks, and they come back to Brazil. We have good examples of that, and it is interesting to bring these opportunities. Firstly, it is a postdoc program, which is the Walter Benjamin program, is for postdoctorate after the doctorate that don't have a research independent research experience, and they apply in 2 years for a position in Germany. In Germany, by the DFG, they become employees of the university, and they get a pay. They are workers there, so at the time of doing the application, they need to write a letter for the researcher. Another possibility that I would like to present that is more into detail is the research plan, and here's the module, the temporary positions for principal investigators. This is very interesting because it allows someone to apply in a project through and with this have the pay of the salary to stay in the institution up to 3 years. So this is even for people that are more advanced in postdoc, or even for those who are professors or associates, and they are able to go to other countries and come back to Brazil. And this is very interesting. So here also the application is straight to the FGG, and the university as well becomes the employer of this researcher. The individual research fund that I said, it was the main program, is very moduled. So the idea is to have one or two or three or all of these different modules and gather them on how they get to the project. So they are costs for instrumentation, travel, even for workshops that are specific to this. It is an instrument that is very flexible. We'll continue with the slides. We would have something for postdocs, docs and postdocs that can work in projects that have funds from the FGG. And here are two databases, even for raising information on institutions, broadening networks in Germany. One is GEPRIS, which is database from GFT that brings all the projects that receive or have received fundings. It is interesting to have a research that is more in depth of this, and we can refine the research by collaboration. And it is a lot of findings we have with projects that we, as soon as we do this research. The other one is GERIT, which is a database on institutions, research institutions, and very interesting because it brings information on an amount of opportunities that we have from research institutions, not only the universities. Very fastly, I would like to present and invite you to get in touch with us in Sao Paulo, where we have our office. We are together with Marcio in the German Center for Science and Innovation. We can get in touch if you have any doubt. Here are two collaborators in Mexico and Chile. I don't know if we have anyone, if we have relationship with these countries. Those are scientists that work with us to represent DFT in these other two countries. So thank you. This is our contacts. Thank you. Enquanto nós vamos carregando a apresentação,
While we are
getting the presentation, I'm going to change into Portuguese. And for the translation as well, we can facilitate is the work. And it's a pleasure to present Maurício Guerra from the Ministry of Environment. He is graduate from the University of Pernambuco and master in civil engineer by the. They have 22 years of experience in environmental studies. Trabalhou como secretário executivo de sustentabilidade.
Worked as sustainable secretary in the superintendence in Recife, in biodiversity and conservation of Pernambuco, and participated in some international organizations for fundraising and research. Big pleasure. Thank you. Welcome.
Bom, vocês me escutam? Muito obrigado.
Thank
Agradeço
you.
o convite
I would like to
realizado pela
thank for the
organização
invitation.
Mackenzie, o CAL São Paulo.
Call São Paulo.
É uma satisfação estar aqui no
I'm very
colégio
glad to be
Faculdade
here
Mackenzie.
in the
Eu
Mackenzie
tenho
University.
pequenos filhos que estudam no Mackenzie, não aqui,
I
lá em
have
Brasília.
two
E tenho uma
small kids that study in Brasilia, and I have,
da universidade já há alguns anos atrás, já
and
fazem
they work
24
in the
anos.
university. It's been
A gente vai ficando
24
velho com o
years.
tempo. E
We
é
get
uma
older
grata
with time, and
satisfação,
it's
então,
a
retornar aqui
satisfaction
ao
to
Mackenzie,
come back to Mackenzie,
onde era uma
where
faculdade na
it
época,
was
até
an
hoje,
university,
que
and it still
expressava
is
os melhores
expressed
caminhos
the
para a arquitetura
best
e urbanismo do país,
of
e que a
architecture
gente
and
tinha um orgulho muito
urbanism of the
grande de
country,
fazer
and we're very
as
proud
parcerias
to
e trocar as experiências com os
do these
estudantes e
partnerships
professores
and
aqui do Mackenzie.
exchange all the information and all
Como vocês estão
these
vendo, eu represento
moments
aqui o
with them.
governo
I
brasileiro,
represent the Brazilian government,
o Ministério do Meio Ambiente,
the Ministry of
do governo
Environment
brasileiro.
from the Brazilian government.
Não vou apresentar para vocês aqui,
I
até por
won't
perspectiva de bolsa, gente, não
present.
vou. Não vou nenhum tipo de
I
cooperação nesse sentido.
don't have a
Eu lamento.
reason. I'm
Não que não
sorry.
exista,
That
mas
not
é
that
porque eu não
it
sou
doesn't
dessa
exist, but
área,
I'm
então eu
not
não vou
from
conseguir
this
apresentar
area,
para
so I
vocês.
won't be able to
Mas eu quero
present.
dizer a todos
But I would like to
que
say
retomamos o papel da ciência
and resume
e
the paper
retomamos
of
o
the
papel
science and resume
da educação e da
the role
educação
of
superior.
education
E
and higher education.
temos
And
gradativamente ampliado
we
os esforços
are
de retomada de bolsas de
broaden the
pesquisa
processes
e restauração de
and
diversas linhas de
restructuring
pesquisa
of
no país.
diverse
E a ciência tem
research
se tornado
lines,
grande
and
porta-voz
it became
da perspectiva de
a
inovação
huge voice for
da
the
economia do
perspective
governo brasileiro.
and
E
of the
também,
government
evidentemente,
Brazil, and
no
of
rumo que o
course
governo veio tentando
where
adotar para o
we've
país,
been
o rumo do
working,
desenvolvimento
adopting to
sustentável.
the country and
E novamente
development, sustainable
aumentamos
development.
o financiamento do
And
Brasil.
we
Vocês
increased
sabem os
the
números?
financing.
Sabem os números?
Do you know the
Eu também não vou
numbers?
saber dizer aqui para
I don't
vocês.
know the numbers either.
Mas eu quero dizer para vocês
But I would
que os
like to
números me impressionaram
say
quando eu vi.
that they're very
Mas a gente
impressive.
faz pesquisa e eu, evidentemente, peço a vocês que
And
possam
I
fazer
have the
isso.
research, and you all
Mas eu vou
can
trazer aqui a
see this.
perspectiva de uma ação do
But
governo
I
brasileiro
can see
em
here an
cooperação com o
action
governo
of the
alemão,
Brazilian
já
government in
que a
cooperation
pauta
of
de
the
hoje
German
trazia a perspectiva
government,
da
because we
cooperação
had
alemã
this
para
perspective of the
identificar a pesquisa
collaboration
científica e as oportunidades
through
apresentadas
scientific
para o Mackenzie ou para
studies presented
a
to
educação
Mackenzie
brasileira.
and
O
Brazilian
governo brasileiro tem uma
education.
relação,
Brazilian government
uma
has a
cooperação com a
relationship, a
Alemanha,
cooperation
em diversas áreas,
in
em diversos
diverse
ministérios.
areas,
Eu
in
vou citar aqui
different
particularmente um,
ministries. And I
qual a
would
gente integra a
mention
partir do
one
Ministério do Meio Ambiente
that we began
e que a
through the
gente
Ministry
conta
of
com a parceria da
Environment,
GZ, que
and
é
we
mais
have
delicado, né?
partnership with
Que
GZ,
é
that
uma
is
empresa alemã
a
de
German
cooperação
company
para desenvolvimento
of
sustentável. Eu acho que
cooperation,
muitos devem conhecer aqui
and many
pela
probably
trajetória,
know from the
única no
trajectory,
país de atuação.
the unique
Para
trajectory
vocês
of the
terem ideia, a
country.
gente
For
tem
you
hoje
to see,
praticamente
we have presently
673 municípios que cooperam a
673
partir da
municipalities
atuação
that
do Ministério do Meio
cooperate
Ambiente e do Ministério da
through the
Cidade. E
Ministry
essa
of
cooperação,
Environment
é
and
casada com os dois ministérios, né?
with the
O
two
governo alemão,
ministries.
através
The
dos seus dois
German
ministérios, o
government, through its
BMZ e o
studies
BMWK.
from BMWK,
Muito obrigado pela assertividade. Os dois ministérios
two ministries
apresentaram esforços de
presented
apoiar essa cooperação em
efforts
torno
of
de
this
um pouco mais
cooperation
de 16
around
milhões
a bit
de
more
reais,
than 60
e
million
são 20
reais,
iniciativas
and we
apoiadas.
have 20
Essas
initiatives
iniciativas
supported.
são voltadas
These
ao desenvolvimento
initiatives
urbano
are
sustentável,
turned to the
passando, como eu falei para
sustainable
vocês, em
urban
mais de 600,
project, and
673
we have more than
municípios que
60.
também contam com
There
esse
are
apoio. São em torno de
673
50, mais de
municipalities
50
that
profissionais dos
we
ministérios
have
envolvidos
more
e
than
mais de
50
30
people involved
colaboradores
and more
também da
than 30
GZ nessa perspectiva.
collaborators from
Entre esses 20
Jay-Z. So
projetos aqui, a gente pode
between
citar
these
diversos que estão
projects,
nessa linha.
we can mention what we have in this line. And I mention one of the projects that were instituted, which is Periferia Viva project. It's a project that resumed the importance and the role to promote sustainable solutions on the peripheral, together with interventions roles based on interventions in the peripheries of the cities. We are together with the Ministry of the Cities, and we want to launch next year in the research of prototypes of solutions based on nature on peripheral communities in Brazil. And on the 14th of November in Rio de Janeiro, we're going to have the Secretary of Peripherals going to launch the publication that talks exactly about the solutions based on nature. So one or the other, it was to have the support of the Council of the Cities, and the other role that is very important is the mobilization of the institutions and entities from Amazonia, promoting a coalition of development, sustainable development. Out from that, another two instruments are being followed as well. One is the development, structuring, and the detail of the cities. We've been working with mentorships, implementation of instruments of the municipality. We've been working with mentorships for the cities. And also we've been doing engagement together with the role of the secretaries to work with Black women for the climate. This is a very specific moment that we've been working with the institutions, local institutions. In face of this, I highlight one, which is raising of something where we articulate the Ministry of Environment, Cities, Science and Technology and Innovation on the perspective of promote a process for integration of the policies, urban policies as well. And we created the program Resilient Cities. From this perspective, starting on this project, cooperation project, that is articulation, nation articulation and development, we saw the possibility and the support on the implementation of city in resilient cities, the development of all mobilization, preparing for the construction or the proposals for the structuring of this program, and of course, have been supporting the structuring of some financing projects for the implementation of resident cities. And this program that is profound, that reveals the importance of make the city greener. And I start considering some questions in this sense in the few minutes I have here. Today, I'm not going to talk on the context of adaptation and the need and the urgency of the plan. I believe everyone are aware of that. What we need in face of the last news, mostly based on the results of the election in the US yesterday, we need to look more and more to this scenario that expect for us less in a fatalism that gets tougher on the climate conditions that we're going to live, less and less, and more hopeful for society to be aware of its role, and mostly that we have only one planet, and only one planet in conditions that allow, that gives us the possibility to inhabit it in an amazing way. We have to see more and more the hope of transformation, to more and more look at what we have in other planets, in our planet, and work on that, and more politics and managements that are committed to this hopeful point of view. So I would like to leave this message and the importance of us as soon as possible to come back to the path of environmental protection, and accidents like this don't become the routine of our policies, because it's going to paralyze us, block us, and avoid us to get this hope that we are willing, having an expectation of this and becoming, and these authoritarian governments less related to protection. It is so important, because more and more we're going to see this reality, and our commitment is to neutralize emissions. And I hope is that people are aware and taking care of this. I study sustainable cities, and we highlighted that people understand that one of the biggest problems on the city are their heat and increase of the temperature. And we have to make this change to protect life in temperatures that can be adequate to life. The other one I highlight here that people recognize is the very small offer of green areas, and for us to change this paradigm. Another highlight we see when we ask the people is that we need to increase and preserve green areas and see the important contribution to work in this regard. As I said, there's a lot of signals, of signs. Reality is there, but the perception of population seeing the need for us to make cities greener and reducing environmental problems that we have, and highlight the cities and the creation of the program. The goal of the program is to improve the quality of the environment and resilience of the cities, delivering the change, stimulating the environmental actions, and bringing sustainability and increasing the resilience, the capability of retention of water more and more, and increase the quality of the environment. The program has the goal to work with the metro region municipalities and high vulnerability. We have around 2,000 municipalities with low adaptation, environmental adaptation, because we have only 5,000 municipalities. So almost half have low adaptation. So the program involves the green areas, sustainable occupation of the soil, and we have the role of working the climate adaptation, bringing benefits on the biodiversity agenda and the emissions. The other three technologies, mobility and residues management, waste management, has the possibility. Technologies are the sustainable operations that we can have. It's a commitment that was taken care of in 2015, and we have to ensure the possibilities for this, and we have to neutralize the emissions up to 2050 in civil construction. And this is a huge challenge. That is how the constructions will be. This is research, exceptional research, and very important to be adopted and implemented, and having the support, the cooperation. The other that is active and electromobility and management, waste management as well. Every axis is going to work on the lines, helping institutions, promoting the norms, making people aware and fomenting projects and making projects in this perspective. For all the resources we have on PAC, only 3 projects were approved, presented by the city halls and have solutions based on nature. This is very significant based on what we have, and we need to train more and more people to get to this road. And lastly, work in the financing mechanisms for these actions that are going to transform the initiatives and transform and give a path for the urban. We have to say that the program is related and articulated with other examples. We have technological and the sustainable taxonomy that we have that works in some perspective for the green financing. Other initiatives with the National Recovery Plan that has the goal to recover 2 million hectares of areas for restoring and investing them, and elaborate the biodiversity plans, integrating and connecting the green areas of the cities. We've been connecting a lot of funds, getting the importance of the National Fund for Development in Science and Technology of the MCTE. It's a fund that has an important perspective to support Brazilian universities for the development and the sustainability methods, and highlight the importance of more and more go through the sustainable programs. And I call all universities that can more and more share the research in this line, and we need, and say that we need to work on these areas, all of the areas that I mentioned in these exercises, because we have some technical gaps and some applicability gaps. So bring the science, the possibility for the direct application, and bring benefits that are essential for society. This is the process I mentioned at the beginning that has been being supported by GIZ. From June to September, we worked with the participative program with virtual and presential meetings. We work with the committee of the program. It is created by the 3 ministries and a representation from the people, and we're structuring the structure of the PAC for us to work on the sustainable solutions described. And till December, we want to give the action plan. I won't get into the rest of the plans, but I'm going to leave here the importance of 2 main elements. In a world that more and more look for wars, individuality, and closing the borders, it is important to highlight the role of cooperation, junction and union of the people to face problems. They're not going to be faced alone, individualized. We need exactly to count with the expertise that we're being developed. We have a clear example of what was to face COVID, and having the work collaboration of several governments and companies that worked in this process. It won't be different for us to avoid to click on the end of the world button and protect lives and reduce the emissions. And the collaboration of the countries is so important, and the transformation of this agenda and intensify the process of this agenda. So I close here, and I would like to thank one more time, and we can engage more and more people for us to get the needed transformation for these cities. Thank you. Seguindo com a nossa programação, é prazer
Following the program,
chamar o meu colega que
it's
me
a pleasure
acompanha nessa
to
mesa,
call
o
my
arquiteto
colleague,
Rafael
the architect
Ambrosio,
Rafael
coordenador de
Ambrosio,
relações
coordinator of
institucionais do CAU-SP,
Institutional
que tem a
Relations,
difícil tarefa de
CAU-SP, that
coordenar
has
agora os
the
debates e a conversa
difficult
e
work
manter,
to
eu
coordinate
fui
the
pedido, fui solicitada
conversation.
que a gente mantivesse o nosso
I
prazo até às 6 da
requested
tarde, mas eu acho que
the
a gente pode
time
passar
to keep to 6.
Boa tarde a todas e todos. Eu
Good
queria,
afternoon.
em nome da
I
professora
would
arquiteta e
like
minha
to,
colega
on
Ana
behalf
Paula
of
Cury,
Professor Architecture
agradecer o
Ana Paula
convite
Cury to
para
thank
mediar
the
essa mesa. Eu
invitation
queria chamar, então, o
to
Márcio, a
moderate
Cristina e o
this
Maurício
table.
para virem aqui
Please,
na
all of
frente.
you come.
E queria
And
rapidamente fazer algumas colocações em
would
nome do
like
Conselho.
to add
E aí,
some
dado o
information
horário, a gente
on the
pode
behalf of
abrir,
the council, and
também
we
para
can
as pessoas
open
e para a mesa fazer essas considerações.
for us to make some considerations if needed.
Eu queria falar aqui mais diretamente ao Márcio e à Cristina, depois eu explico por
Marcia and
quê.
Cristina would like to say
O Maurício é um
specifically,
colega e a
Mauricio
gente
is a
tem trabalhado
colleague.
junto entre o Ministério e o CAU, mas eu queria colocar algumas questões, né? Eu, como a Ana colocou, coordeno a Comissão de Relações Institucionais do Conselho de Arquitetura. A gente está na gestão 24
And
e 26,
we've
e nesse
been
primeiro ano a
in
gente
this
tem
management
trabalhado fortemente para
24-26
estabelecer formas de cooperação entre o Conselho e uma série de
between the
entidades,
council and a lot of entities,
buscar formas de ampliar o acesso dos arquitetos às demandas da sociedade, ou seja, né, a gente tem
and
77
talking
mil
about the
arquitetos
societies, we have 77,000 architects in the country, and we have an urgency in the cities to count on architect work and urbanists. And here I would like to say, this year we established some cooperation agreements with 5 ministries, from the Secretary of the Patrimony, IFAM, Institute of the Patrimony, the Colonization Institute, with Mauricio, Ministry of Environment, and the National Secretary of Peripheries, with aims to create ways to add the council and architects within these debates that are more urgent and different from Mauricio, that to
Só não sabia. O Conselho de Arquitetura ele é conselho superavitário e a gente nesses acordos tem estabelecido
and
a
agreements,
construção de editais,
the construction
que os
of
arquitetos a partir de organizações da sociedade
documents
possam acessar os recursos para complementar e
and the
atuar
resources to complement the CAU has the intention to participate. We sign the document
para que a gente possa contribuir nas discussões de capacitação, né, e pesquisa para o ano que
and
vem.
we wanted to discuss training and research. We're building the specific thing and things that are important for our partners. We are formalizing a project that is very important on the social interest, even for scholarship for Brazilian architects to have a residence to work in Cape Verde. I'm saying all of this to say that the council has a look to find ways of improving solutions, and we always have factible solutions to create funds that are combined, or programs, research programs and institutions from Germany that presented work here, and the council to support resources to reinforce the possibility of offering scholarships for architects and urbanists to work in this research, as nothing is more urgent than the climate change matter to establish these relationships. This is what I wanted to add as an introduction. And following, I talked in 5 minutes, and I would like to open the floor. Open the floor for the colleagues that are on here, so we come back to the table to close at 6. If no one wants to say anything, I give the floor for the colleagues to close. If you want to comment on what I've been saying about the council, I would like to establish this partnership and hear about how can we do this. Thank you.
Isso aqui. Ah, não, isso não é fixo. Bom, então, consideração final da minha parte.
Final words.
Eu queria fazer 2 comentários.
I would like to say one thing.
Eu queria fazer comentário em cima
I
de
would
uma
like to
coisa que a
comment
Judith
on
falou,
something that
bem,
Judith
né?
said.
Eu acho que você
I believe
da sua própria
you
experiência
told about your
de,
experience
fazer e tentar
on
propor
trying
pesquisa várias
to
vezes,
propose
né?
research several times,
Talvez no primeiro
and
momento
maybe on a
não
first
certo, entendeu?
moment,
Até uma segunda e uma terceira
even
vez.
second and
Eu
third
acho
time.
que
I
a partir
think
de uma agência
that
financiadora,
from
como
a
se você
financing
reforçar
agency
aquilo que a
to
Judith
reinforce
falou,
what
porque a
Judith
gente vê
said,
muito isso
because we see
também na
this
DFG, né? De que
a lot
projetos são
on
apresentados
projects
uma
are
segunda ou até
presented
uma terceira vez.
second or third
E eu
time
só
sometimes,
posso, na
and I
verdade,
only
impulsionar para realmente
can
tentar
promote
fazer isso, porque
to
as
try
nossas
to make this,
hipóteses
because
de
our
sucesso, elas são de mais
success
ou menos
rates are
30%,
around
né? Que
30%
ainda é
that
alto,
are
se um compara,
still
por exemplo,
high
com IACI,
if we
ou
compare
outras
with
agências
ASC
financiadoras,
and
mas ao mesmo
other
tempo, quer dizer
financing
que 60%
agencies.
não são financiados.
And we see
Mas
that
muitas vezes na primeira vez,
some
então,
percentages
realmente
are
nós
not
vemos
financed.
muito
So
isso, uma
we
proposta ser
see
retrabalhada a
a
partir
lot of
dos
proposals to be
pareceres
worked from
que
the
proponentes sempre
results that the
recebem e ser
proponent
apresentado a uma segunda
bring
vez e na
and
segunda
being
vez sim
presented
consigam
on the second time.
financiamento.
Maybe
Então,
sometimes
eu
on the
só
second time they
queria
get
reforçar isso.
the
E eu queria
result.
fazer convite
And I would like to
para o ano
invite
que vem para
you
Berlim.
for next year to
Eu não vou
Berlin.
pagar a viagem,
I'm
né?
not going to pay.
Eu só estou fazendo o
I'm just
convite
inviting, but I'm not going to pay.
para a FAPESP Week.
FAPESP
É mais
Week
Save the
is
Date.
it's
A
more than
FAPESP tem
like a save the
formato
date.
que chama
FAPESP
FAPESP
has
Week. É para promover
something
a
that is
ciência
called
que está
FAPESP
sendo
Week,
feita
and is to
no
promote the
estado de
science
São
that is
Paulo, e ela coorganiza
being
isso
done
com
in the
instituições internacionais, sempre
Anniversary
em
of Sao
lugares
Paulo, and it
diferentes.
always
Então, no ano que
coordinate that
vem, do
in
dia
different
25 ao dia
places. And
26 de março,
in
a gente
March,
vai ter uma FAPESP Week
we're going to
alemã
have
em
a
Berlim,
FAPESP Week
na
in
Universidade
Berlin,
Livre
in
de
the
Berlim,
University of
mas
Berlin,
que
and
é
it's
uma
going to
FAPESP
be a week
aberta a toda a
FAPESP open
comunidade
to
da
the
Alemanha.
whole community of
E
Germany.
vão ser
And it's going to
pautadas
be
vários temas,
a
vários
lot
temas
of matters we're
científicos,
going
tem
to
vários painéis
see. We have
científicos. A
several
FAPESP vem com uma
panels.
grande delegação,
We
ainda vai
have
fazer
a huge
chamadas
group,
também
and we're going to
para
call
incluir mais pessoas
to
nessa
include more
delegação.
people in
Então, eu
this.
queria já aqui
So
convidar para esse
I would
evento,
like
que
to
acho que vai ser
invite you for
ótimo
this
também
event that is
para
going to be amazing,
estabelecer mais redes,
to
contatos
establish more
com a
networks,
comunidade,
contacts
pelo menos
with the
aqui do estado de
community
São Paulo e da
from
Alemanha,
Brazil
tá?
and
Então, é
Germany.
isso. Obrigada.
Bem, em relação à informação que você colocou e a
Regards of the
pergunta,
information you just brought,
a única resposta que eu tenho assim de
my only
imediato é
response
realmente alguém tem muito
is
nesse país, né, para oferecer, né?
I'm glad that
Mas
someone has something
objetivamente
to offer in
falando,
this country,
as
but
nossas agências,
our
elas,
agencies,
ao que a gente entende,
or at least what we understand, is
Dificilmente tem como fazer uma cooperação
it's difficult to get a
quando o caráter da
cooperation
organização. Geralmente as
when the
parcerias se dão
organization
entre as agências de
partnerships
fomento.
in general happen between
Então, não
the
sei
foment
se
agencies. So
realmente
I
há
don't
espaço.
know if we have
Talvez quem
space.
estiver fazendo o projeto,
Maybe for those who
talvez
are
vá
in charge
buscar
of projects
separadamente
can look
financiamento daquilo
for
ali,
separately
e
for
fazer uma
some
combinação.
financing, but it's a
Mas
combination.
diretamente, objetivamente
And
falando,
directly,
não vejo. Eu não
objectively
cuido dessa
talking, I
parte
don't see that. I
diretamente nos
don't take
programas
care
de
of that
fomento.
in the
Geralmente eles são
programs,
todos
and
formulados na
they are all
central, no
formulated in the central,
e alguns, então,
and
são
some are
nacionalizáveis, né, com alguns países, né?
nationalized in
Ah,
some countries.
Fora isso, você teria que procurar, realmente, os pesquisadores vão procurar dentro
So,
dos programas que existem.
different from that, you
Então,
have to go after the
de cada.
programs that already
Eu só
exist.
queria, talvez, só colocar aqui que
Maybe just say that
eu sou entusiasta dessa iniciativa do
I'm
Climápolis,
enthusiast
né,
of
dessa
this
temática,
Climapolis
e,
initiative,
assim, no que for possível, eu estou sempre
and
procurando estar apoiando vocês.
everything I
Com
can
dinheiro
do to
não, ou
work,
seja, a gente também sempre
I'm
fala que
here
é
to
um
support
apoio
with money or not.
institucional,
Sometimes we have an institutional
ajudando
support,
e, no que for
helping
possível,
in whatever is
networking,
possible with
abrindo
networking and
contatos,
opening
ou na
contacts,
divulgação das
or
iniciativas de vocês.
spreading your
Na parte
initiatives.
de
In
fomento,
regards of
do
foment,
Martin aqui, não sei se o Martin percebeu
I don't know if
necessidade,
Martin
mas a
noticed,
Universität agora está associada ao
but we are
DPA, né? Então, por isso
related
você se
now
qualifica também a
because you
solicitar
qualify to request
apoio. Não sei se
support.
conhece já a professora
I don't know if you know
Vânia
Professor
lá, que é a
Vania
nossa
there. She
referência,
is a
que a
reference
reitoria nomeou como
that the
possível
dean
de contato com o DPA, e mais
named her
professor
as
Uzeman, eu
the
acho.
main contact,
Acho que é
and Professor Usman as well, Benjamin Kuzeman,
né? Então, e Sara,
and Sarah,
esqueci o sobrenome agora.
I
São
forgot
as três
her.
pessoas que
We have three
eles nomearam
people
para ser
there
nossos interlocutores,
that are
né?
our
Talvez eles não
connection.
saibam da sua
Maybe you
conexão com
don't
o
know
Brasil,
about this
Yara.
connection with Brazil.
Então é isso. Então, assim,
So,
coloco à disposição,
I'm
né?
here available,
Mesmo para quem não é
even
ainda
for those who
conectado
are
ao
not
DPA
yet
formalmente,
connected,
como a Universidade de
to
Hamburgo.
formalize this as
Estamos
the
aí à
University of
disposição
Hamburg,
para
and
sempre
we're here
estar
available
conversando e
to
apoiar do
talk
jeito que for
and
possível,
support
com ou sem financiamento.
how possible we could.
Bom, para encerrar, passa para o Maurício, a gente
Closing,
já
I
tá
give the floor to
6:03,
Mauricio.
Maurício.
We are 3 minutes late.
Não, só para a gente não perder só essa dimensão
Just
colocada na
not
questão dos
to
investimentos, né?
miss the
Só para vocês terem
dimension of
ideia,
investment
o
first, to see
esse
the
do Fundo
fund,
Nacional de Ciência e
National
Tecnologia,
Fund of
que
Science and
uma das
Technology,
linhas, né, que é
one of
políticas
the
públicas
lines
aplicadas com ciência, é a política
applied
aplicada,
with
né?
science.
São 50 milhões que
So
foram
are the
disponibilizados
50
esse
millions
ano,
that were
né?
available this
Para as
year
iniciativas que são
for the
apresentadas
initiatives that are
na sua grande
presented
maioria pelos
most
institutos de ciência e tecnologia do
by
país.
the studies
Então, é
of
importante
science
sempre estar de olho
and
e atento
technology of the
a essas
country,
perspectivas
and
que
it's
possam
always
ser
important to be
trazidas. E bem assim,
there,
houve recentemente uma
and
recuperação da escalada
we
das
have
bolsas de
a
pesquisa,
recovery of the
e quem tem sabe o que é isso.
scholarships of the researchers, and also add some of the launching that have been requested to reinforce the environmental policies. So for you to understand, the fund that was paralyzed like 4 years earlier, today they worked in 300 million, and this year was 10 billion. So it was a very large cooperation with the projects, with the strategy of recovery, the resources for this area. So next year, once we have the 10 and 2025, the expectation is to be 20. Working is an important resource for protection and conservation of the environment and the climate facing. The Amazonia Fund that was used in the last 4 years worked with 300 million, and we had an increasing since the beginning of the government to be in 700 million for the Amazonia Fund. Other resource that has been used is
Recupera a Amazônia, agora no
The
fim
project
do-
Recupera
o
Amazônia
nome do projeto é na casa dos 2 bilhões de reais
is
para fazer
around
projeto de
2
restauração
billion
na
for
Amazônia, ou seja,
restoration projects in
uma
Amazonia.
importante
It
recuperação da
is
capacidade
an
de
important
investimento
recovery
em
of
ações
the
de projetos.
capacity of
E é
investment
um
in
importante
projects,
bioma, né,
and
para
it's an
enfrentar
important
a questão do
bioma
combate ao
to
desmatamento e
face
zerarmos o desmatamento
the
até 2030 e
forestry
é real.
and to
E fazer o
zero it
processo de recuperação
and to
e
make the
regeneração
recovery
florestal. Então,
process
isso
with
são
the
uma das ações que
forest
compõem
recovery. This is some of the actions counted with this initiative, and this is sent to some adaptation and recovery that is around 7 million. And because we have an important resource for the cities from the Ministry of the Cities, around 2 billion reais for investments in sustainable cities. Of course, outside from the PAC, because of the size of the resources that are given to PAC. This is the intention to reintroduce, and we saw this week the launching of EB in the infrastructure axis, that is an important contribution, and with perspective to have the counterparts of the private sector getting to 1 trillion reais. It is something very important in the agenda of the Brazilian industrialization together with sustainability. So there are very important paths.
Bom, agradeço então a Cristina, o Márcio, o Maurício.
We thank everyone, and we closed the table.
Ai, ai.